I am safe. Actually, I wanted to tell another story as well, but I'm like, guys, so I constantly have to like remind myself, like in every space, that I am safe. Yeah. For me, you know, I don't write the blog to be fancy or whatever. I write for it to be effective. My name is Asive Mahlamvu, and this is my journey to being a content creator, brought to you by Goyasha Media. My name is Asive Mahlamvu, and I come from a small village in Eastern Cape called Eqaukeni, and I am a blogger and a content creator. I have one sibling from my mother's side of the family, and I have two siblings from my father's side of the family. I have two sisters and one brother. I was raised by my grandmom, actually by my grandmothers. I went to India High School, and then after that I went to Wits University, and I'm currently working now as a data analyst as well. I think for me that content creation is really about taking our everyday life and making something beautiful out of it. I think it is making art out of life, and I think that all of life is art, and I think it's basically just taking that and putting it out there in the world so that in a way that you see it yourself. So here's the interesting thing, right? So I read in some website somewhere that you cannot study to be an analyst. I think you're either born an analyst or you're not. And I truly believe that I am an equivocal analyst, like in all ways of life. And so for me, even the blogging is basically an analysis of my own life, of the events around the world, and how how everything really comes together. I have always been an observer and just trying to see what insights can come from everything that I interact with, which is what the blog is as well. It's basically insights and analysis of my own life and everything that is around me. Okay, that is such a lovely question. So for me, I've always loved writing from when I was a little girl. Like I've written so there's a funny story. In grade 3, I did not know a single word in English. And so I'm in this class and somebody's eraser gets lost. And then obviously I don't know English, and the children in my class are accusing me of having stolen the eraser and stuff. And I think at the time, like being like the analyst person that I am, I caught on to the words lying and laughing, and they like sounded the same to me. Like it was like lying, laughing. Okay, they sound the same. And then so my class teacher at the time was Mrs. Masilo. So Mrs. Masilo is like, who stole the eraser? They saying that you stole the eraser, yada yada. And I'm like, no ma'am, they are laughing. And then from there, that's when I decided that, you know what, like I'm gonna invest into reading and into understanding English. And I remembered like there was just lots of random books around the house, and my granddad loved to read, so I'd steal his books because we were not allowed to touch them and stuff. And that's really where my love for reading and even writing my own stuff came from. So I really loved writing. And also when I started my personal development journey, I was like required to basically journal my thoughts, to journal how I felt, and that's really where my love was basically sparkled again into writing. And I feel I'm such a, that's the way that I can express myself. So really, I guess when I'm answering that question, I'd have to basically go back into why the blog was created in the first place. So I basically created this blog as a way of writing my own thoughts, because there were so many insights that were coming from my own journey in personal development that I felt that they were worthy of being shared. And even in how I wrote it, like I had so, like, I know, like, it touched me how I wrote it. I know, like, that sounds so narcissistic, but it's really not. I think a lot of it had great inspiration from my own experiences. And so I basically write about personal development. I use, what I basically do is that I kind of create an analogy sometimes and just metaphors of my own life within the writing itself. I try to ensure that there's the entertainment part of it within the writing, and also the creative part of it, where I basically get to so that the person who's reading is basically entertained by whatever it is that I'm reading, but also at the same time just to ensure that the person has, like, derives something out of it. For example, like my recent post was the post that I made on Mother's Day on how to deal with Mother's Day when you've lost your mother. And so that's the kind of content that I will create, and it's basically about processing pain and your own experiences. I think for me, my biggest encouragement for the content is really, I think in life we're constantly doing the best that we can with the tools that we have. And I think that most of the time people don't have the tools. And when you don't have the tools, it's very hard to be able to deal with life experiences. And I think that for me, that is the biggest driver, because I think even from the stuff that we get, like from our parents, you know, whatever knowledge it is that they impart on us, even that, they are doing the best that they can. But I think for me, like, what drives the content is really just being able to place people in a position where they're basically equipped to be able to process and to deal with whatever is in front of them with regards to the topics that I actually do discuss within the blog. I think something else that also does drive it is really the fact that I love writing, and I think you know, I don't share everything on there, but it's like, if I can share with somebody who may have gone through something that is similar, who may have even for once in their lives felt that they were inadequate because they didn't have the tools, then they can look to the website and they can see that sometimes that, you know, the thoughts that we think about ourselves really stem from the stuff that we may have heard in our childhood, the stuff that we may have, you know, processed and taken personally from the people that we admired or respected or looked to validate us. And I think for me, that the blog is mainly just for ensuring that you have the tools to be able to process whatever it is that you need to process in order to get to a place of confidence and of self-love and self-actualization. So for me, firstly, so as I said before, that the blogging really started from my journey with my life coach. I do think that for me, it was basically just, so the life coach is the first thing, or a psychologist, or somebody who has an objective voice in your life, who can be able to have an objective voice. And secondly, a laptop. You need a domain for your website. You need like, I don't want to say the names of like the whatever the domain that I'm using, but you need the domain and you have to pay for those. You need the domain and the, what is this, like the actual like asive.com, for example, like, and that you have to buy that as well. So you need that, and like it ranges. So for example, like I know like when I first started it, like I think I paid about like 1,000 rand. Like it's very expensive. Like it depends also on what platform you're using. I know Wix.com is much more expensive. I mean, much more cheaper. But I basically used WordPress for my website, and I think obviously internet for that, and just like, I don't know, just like interest. I think that's also what you need. You need to be interested in doing it, because some of the times I literally have to go and hard code some of the stuff like in the background that come up on the website, and you just need to be willing to learn as well. Of course, I think, you know, when you have a full-time job, like time is your biggest constraint, because I never want to publish something on my website that is like half thought or like half done or whatever. And I think for me, like that is the first challenge. And also sometimes like creating a website, like you need to research a lot, like you need to, I particularly was using YouTube throughout the time, and I feel like if you don't have enough data or like Wi-Fi around you, then that creates constraints for you. And I think for the most part, you know, like when it comes to content creation, like you need to ensure that, because otherwise like somebody else could go and do like the background things that happen, and I'd be responsible for like just the actual writing within the blog. But then having to like go through the whole process is sometimes like it by the time I have to actually like write and publish stuff, like I'm just like, oh, that was a lot. So there's a quote, and I don't mean to sound deep, but this is me, guys. There's a quote that says, so I created this quote like long back, like I think back in 2016, and I said, for the fools who dream, that's who I create for. That is why I create, because I feel that sometimes you have the dream, you have, you know, the ambition, you have the vision that you have for yourself, but everything around you is saying that you will never get there. Like everything around you says that you're inadequate. And I think for me, I create for the fools who dream. I have so many people that I enjoy consuming their content. So firstly, I enjoy, I don't know if you guys know Oloituli Shabane. Like I love her content. I've actually written for her website as well. I love her content. And there's some lady called, I don't know like how to pronounce her name, but it's Neka J. That's her Instagram handle. I love her content. Like she publicizes like things like poetry, and I also follow a lot of like psychologists as well. So that is very inspiring. Oh, and Louise Hay, I know like she's like so old school, but like I love Louise Hay's content as well. There's also a lady called Byron Katie. She does a lot of like inner work. So I consume a lot of content that has to do with personal development. I don't know if I should also say like South African content creators, but I think Oloitu falls within that category as well. And basically like just anybody who's like just where you feel that you can connect with the content from a heart space, because I think sometimes that you know, sometimes it's not really about the person who's doing the content, sometimes it's about the content itself. And I think for me that's even with people, that's how I connect with people. It's like I'm not connecting with you because you're at this position. I'm connecting to you from a soul level. My journey to being a content creator has been pleasantly surprising. I think the journey has been much more fulfilling than I actually thought. and I have really received such good feedback, and that has been so fulfilling to me. I think it has also opened opportunities for me because, you know, I think it's also given me some form of practice as well to anticipate, you know, possible struggles that I may possibly, you know, encounter in my own journey to becoming this content creator that I am. So yeah, it's been lovely.